bringing you all the latest Nottoway County high school and Bearcat sports each week.
10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45.
Starring Aaron Sorensen and John Dykstra on the Maryville Forum Sports Podcast.
He ran it back 109 yards. They're not going to keep him off the field.
Coming to you from the campus of Northwest Missouri State University.
Welcome back to another edition of the Maryville Forum Sports Podcast, brought to you by Compass Dental Doctors Bruce Twaddle and Brian Vertaler. As always, I'm your co-host Aaron Sorensen with John Dykstra, and we're going to jump right into all of the family weekend festivities that happened here in Maryville over the weekend. Bearcat Volleyball got their conference start at home on Friday against Lindenwood. They ended up winning 3-0 over Lindenwood, so a sweep for them there. And that's kind of what we had talked about, is we really needed to see them not go 5 sets with teams that they really didn't need to go 5 sets with. And so that's really a positive sign for Coach Worth as well as for this group of girls. And of course, we've always talked about this team and how deep they are through their lineup and how a lot of girls contribute. During the Lindenwood game, it was no different. We had a lot of girls getting involved. Bethany Elkins, Hallie Sidney, Sophia Schleppenbach, and Maddie Bruder. And kind of the star of the weekend, a shining star who actually came out and not so much of an assisting role, was Sophia Schleppenbach. She really just kind of took over and made her stance. Of course, Maddie Bruder is always great. Maddie had 16 kills. But Sophia came in during this Lindenwood game with 12 kills, 2 aces, and 4 blocks. But things got really exciting on Saturday when they played UCM, who's always kind of been a tough competitor for them. They went ahead and swept UCM as well, 3-0. Maddie came in again that game with 19 kills and 1 block. But Sophia Schleppenbach, the numbers don't really reflect how incredibly dominant she was. She had 6 kills, but she had 5 blocks. It was, and the announcer really got it right. He calls her Schleppenblock. So that is her nickname, and he really got it right. She was just a force at the net. Nobody was really getting hits over her, and you could see the frustration on the UCM girls. There was nothing working for them. In fact, in the second set, they started hitting out of the back row just so that they could try to get the ball over the net because nothing was working. And that just really kind of goes to show how well-rounded this team is and how well they work together.
Yeah, Sophia just stepping up like that. We talked about Maddie Bruder before and how she may honestly go down as the greatest player Northwest has ever had for volleyball. She has those kind of accolades on her resume, but getting those contributions from Sophia and Hallie and all the other hitters, that just makes this team stronger, and you've seen it with their record so far this season.
Like you said, Maddie's going to be great, and Maddie's known to be great, and it's just really, really fun when we see all these other girls getting involved. And one other girl I want to just touch on really quick, Bethany Elkins. We've talked about her just a little bit before. She's a sophomore this year, didn't really see the court last year, her freshman year, and so she's playing out of that middle spot when Sophia is not, and she got 12 kills and 4 blocks. And the fun thing about Bethany is she's not your average middle. As when you're talking about Sophia Schleppenbach and Morgan Lewis, those are your two other middles, and they're about 6 foot, 6'1". Bethany's about 5'9". But she makes up for it with her ability to jump, her ability to just be strong at the net. And so it was really, really a great weekend for Bearcat Volleyball to go ahead and sweep Lindenwood and sweep UCM just to say, okay, we are here, we're ready for the season. And they will get started again with their conference rival on Tuesday the 18th. They'll play Missouri Western at home, and I believe that game starts at 6 o'clock. So they'll get yet another shot at a conference team this week. But John, they were not the only Bearcat teams competing this weekend.
No, family weekend. Obviously, you want to get as many of those teams home as you can. Bearcat soccer got their weekend started in a little tough fashion with a very tough opponent in Central Missouri. They ended up falling 4-1, but they had the chance to bounce right back. Actually, taking you behind the curtain a little bit, we're recording this on Sunday morning, so they will play later today at 1 o'clock against Missouri Western, and that's always a fun game and a fun atmosphere when you go the rivals just down the road. So they're obviously hoping to end family weekend on a good note. And then Cross country wasn't actually home this weekend. They went up to the University of Nebraska for the Woody Grillo Invitational and put in a tremendous performance. They had 3 girls in the top 10 finishers in the women's section of the cross country meet, and then they also had 2 men finish in the top 10. So just a really solid performance from the cross country team. With the new coaching staff this year, they seem like they're really starting to put it together.
And it is really exciting to watch. And like with soccer, like you said, they played a tough opponent in UCM, but I look for them to bounce back. They've got a solid crew of girls, this new coach, and I think they're really looking this year just to kind of build up and get to that place where they want to be.
Yeah, I'm very excited to, like I said, they play later today on Sunday afternoon, and I'm excited to get out there and see how they do. And if you want to read about that game or figure out how they did, just go to MaryvilleDailyForum.com because I'll have a story up later tonight on that.
Yeah, and like I said, almost every sport you can go there and you can find out. John will have the story for you. So let's move on even more. The Bearcat games continue. Bearcat football on Saturday was underway. So John, hit us with all the family weekend stuff with Bearcat football.
The major takeaway for me from that game was just the honoring of 2 Bearcat legends. The ultimate legend, Mel Churchma, obviously got inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, or got honored for being inducted into that. And at halftime, we had a very nice ceremony with his wife and family there to accept a plaque in his honor. And the crowd really gave it to him and showed him that appreciation that you love to see with a team with as much tradition as Bearcat football has. The fans recognizing who really the godfather of that tradition is with Coach T out there. And Rich Wright talked about after the game what Mel kind of meant to him, and obviously bringing him in and giving him that chance. All but one of the full-time assistants on the staff are either former Bearcat players or assistants that originally got introduced to the program when Mel was there. So I think we have that clip of what Rich had to say about his mentor after the game.
I really didn't get to see much of it, but I wanted to tell him, you get older and you do this for a longer period of time, and I don't think you tell people as much as you should how you feel about them. And I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to do a better job of that with my players, and also with Coach Churchma. And I just said, you totally deserve this honor, and I just want to tell you I love you. And he really means the world to me. He's the one that gave me the shot here at Northwest Missouri State. And he's just a fantastic man, and so I'm just pleased that he was given this honor because he truly deserves it. Yeah, I do, because I think he hired good people. I think he had a vision for what he wanted in this program and the types of people he wanted in this program, and what we've done is we've kind of continued that vision, so to speak. And, it never really changed, whether it was Coach Bostwick, it was Coach Doral, or it was myself. There's just a way we go about doing things here. And it really starts with our kids. It starts with not just recruiting good football players, but recruiting great people. And, if you do that, the wins and the losses usually kind of take care of themselves.
That really shows the way that Coach Wright feels about Mel Churchma, and the way that Mel kind of was a lot of these coaches' mentors and created this program, started this program to be what it was. And obviously, Mel Churchma, incredible guy, incredible staple in this program. But John, there was one other coach that we were honoring on Family Weekend.
Yeah, Family Weekend is traditionally about Scott Bostwick, and he obviously was the head coach before he tragically passed away, before he got to coach a game, initially replacing Coach Churchma, and before Coach Doral came in. But Family Weekend, you see a lot of those red hats in the stands. Obviously, Rich always wears a red hat on the sideline to honor Scott. And they did some cool things with it this year. They had 4 different people from the community come in and talk to the players just about what Scott meant to them and really meant to this community. And with obviously no players still on the roster that ever played for Coach Bostwick, it really emphasizes what he meant to the program and how they can kind of go ahead and honor him. But I think we also have a little soundbite from one of the newest Bearcats, Josh Caldwell. It just what Scott Boswick obviously meant to him and now the program that he's trying to help win a national title for.
A lot of places talk about team and family and, things like that. And, it's not like that everywhere. When I got here first day on campus, I noticed it. These guys took me in, quicker than any other team, any other player that they ever took in. And it just is different here. And hearing all those people and all the people around the community come up and speak to us, take the time out of their day, to tell us about their memories with, Mr. Scott Boswick, it just attests to, the type of person he was. And I never met him, but, I know his brother, and, they're just good people. And just the fact that people love you that much and they take a whole week to dedicate, this program to you, and he's a very, very big part of the success that we have here in Northwest. It's just, it's amazing to see all those fans and supporters, wearing the red in the stands, just supporting them. It's amazing.
And what an incredible thing to hear from a guy like Josh Caldwell. You can hear in his voice how much he really takes in this tradition and takes in this school and understands how important it is, and these guys that have created this program to be what it is. And I told John the first time that we listened to this clip, I said it's one of those sports moments that almost just gives you goosebumps because you understand how important it really is.
Yeah, I think him coming in, and I mean, he said that before too about how this place is different, and it's really, in myself having covered other programs, I mean, it really is. It seems like such a cliche to say, but this weekend especially, with how people honor kind of the trailblazers before that helped put this program where it is. Honestly, most programs, if you had Scott's story, there would be stuff honored about him and you would talk about him, but to have a whole week and just honor what he meant to this program, he's obviously very well deserving of that honor, and it's just really something to see that everybody associated with Bearcat football knows his story and just knows what he meant. And that's really a tribute to Rich Wright and the rest of the coaching staff, and Andy Peterson, the director of athletics, to just keep that tradition going and keep that in everybody's minds.
And to have two legends like that, but especially Scott Boswick, and having a week dedicated to him, like you said, that just adds yet more fuel to this Bearcat team's fire to really go out and perform and really just kind of show how proud they are to be where they're at, and they definitely did that this weekend. For the second year in a row, your Northwest Missouri State Bearcats beat Missouri Southern 63-0. So we kind of laughed about last week about maybe calling a game where the Bearcats would be in the 60s, and they definitely did it again, and it was a big offensive game. John, what did you see from the Bearcats this week?
I mean, Braden Wright was good once again. Now you're starting to expect it. The first couple of weeks we were pretty impressed with it, obviously, but now he's almost a given that he's just gonna go out and do that. Early in the game, they used Josh Caldwell a lot and established that running game and kind of pounded Southern a little bit. Alec Tatum led the team in receptions and had over 80 yards receiving. Sean Bain had a huge punt return, and also there wasn't much to nitpick from this game. It was just a really good performance by the Bearcats in front of a crowd that was really excited to see that victory and to, like we said before, honor Mel at halftime. So it's just a great weekend for the Bearcats.
Yeah, it was, and it was pretty warm to be sitting in those stands, but the fans really, they didn't care because it was, like you said, just to honor those guys, those coaches, but also to be there for these young guys who continue to improve. And like you said, this offense has been pretty incredible so far these first three games with Braden Wright, and as you said, so that kind of brings us to our regular segment here for the Maryville Forum Sports Podcast, which is brought to you by Compass Dental Doctors Bruce Twaddle and Brian Vertaller, which is our Athlete of the Week. So I'm going to stay right here on the football field for that, and if you can't guess from what we've already talked about, my Athlete of the Week is Sean Bain Jr. He really just he's one of those guys, he's extremely athletic, so even days that he has quote bad days. They're pretty good days for just about anybody else, and it was really just incredible to watch him do what he did, and especially like that big return with 80, how many yards?
88 yard
88
return.
yards. That's what I thought it was. And he was just, I mean, he is so quick, but he's also so comfortable and confident on the field. And especially when Braden's connecting with him, there was a couple people on Twitter talking about how Sean Bain's just one of those guys in D2 that he really sets under the stars, and he really proved himself as athlete of the week this week.
Yeah, and he talked about that. You mentioned the word comfort, and I think that's a big thing for Sean this year. Going into the senior year, obviously burst onto the scene as a freshman, was MIAA Freshman of the Year, but he's kind of just consistently had almost a repeat of that year every year, and it's because injuries have kind of kept him from going to that next level. Played with a knee brace all of last year, and that was something he talked about to us after the game, was just how much playing without that knee brace just gives him that freedom and makes him feel so much more explosive. And we're seeing it on the field this year with obviously Braden able to hit him deep, but on those punt returns too, this is the first one he's broke for a touchdown, but he's had chances to do other ones too, and that he has just been a shoestring tackle away from breaking. So Sean's really kind of coming into his own a little bit more this year, and really embracing that leadership role in this offense, I think.
And I think he's one of those guys that we talk about Braden being that way. The Northwest family, you could say, really appreciates Sean and the guy that he is. He's one of those guys where anybody could go down on the field afterwards and strike a conversation with him, and he'll talk to you. So that just really adds on to him. But
you could just tell in the media room after the game when Colin McDonough told us who we were going to get. When Sean's name came up, we were like, okay, we know we're going to get some good quotes from Sean, because he's always excited and willing to talk about his game. So, yeah, we certainly appreciate Sean.
And, yeah, like you said, just what an incredible week for him, just to top off this family weekend that has been so awesome for a lot of sports. So, John, take us to your athlete of the week this week.
My athlete of the week is a golfer this week for the first time. We go to the links with Emily Long, a junior from Maryville. She shot even par 36, which for a girls high school golfer, that's pretty incredible. She won. They only play 9 holes in these duels or quads or triangulars, and this one happened to be a quad with Bishop LeBlanc, Central, and Lafayette. And yeah, she shot even par 36 to win the 9-hole event by 11 strokes. So winning by more than a stroke a hole is about as dominant as it gets. Really just a great week for Spoofhound Golf in winning that. They shot 180 as a team, which is a great 9-hole score. And they have, and it's really a great sign because they have state at home this year at Mazingo, and that's where they played this event at. So if Emily can duplicate that, we could be in for some real fireworks come the state tournament.
And I've heard a lot of great things about this Spoofhound golf team. So, like you said, especially being able to have it at Mazingo, I look to see a pretty big performance out of them. So we also had some other Spoofhound sports in action this week.
It was just a dominant week for Spoofhound sports, honestly. And yesterday, Spoofhound softball won the Stanberry tournament. I don't have the stats yet because I was at the Bearcat game, obviously, yesterday. But I do know Ashlyn Alexander and Emma Baldwin each had home runs in that championship game, which is great for them. Those are 2 of their top hitters. Emma's a senior. She's the catcher. She's really kind of the heartbeat of that team and has been that since basically her sophomore year, especially the shutout of Stanberry. It's just an incredible weekend for Spoofhound softball. We just keep rolling here with the soccer team too. They beat Bishop LeBlanc 8-0 this week. So they just keep things rolling, and they have a big week ahead of them. With they start the week against Savannah on Monday, and then they have Chillicothe on Tuesday and a couple home matches. So try to get down and watch that soccer team if you can, because they're doing some great things this year. Spoofhound tennis also just a straight dominant week. They won 9-0 against both Lafayette and Benton, improved to 4-0 now on the season. Spoofhound volleyball, excuse me. They just like Bearcat volleyball, they had a straight sets win. They beat Lafayette, and again, I got to cover that game live. So the big thing for Bearcat or for Spoofhound volleyball is that just like Bearcat volleyball, Serena Sindel is kind of their main piece, just like Maddie Bruder is for the Bearcat. And their key this whole year was to find some complementary pieces to her, and those were on display against the Irish with Kelsey Scott and Morgan Steckline, both sophomores, stepping up and having great games. And last but not least, the cross-country team was in action with 2 meets finally this week. Took them a while to get their season going because they had those rainouts. But in Cameron, the girls got to run, and Laura Feuerbacher took 2nd, Amy Feuerbacher took 10th, and Madeline Pritzel took 20th. So to get 3 medals in that first meet, that was a big deal for them. And in Platte County, the boys got to run, and Garrett Dumke took 12th, and Zach Kaiser took 16th. So just a great overall week for them and for Spoofhound Athletics as a whole.
It was a great week for them, and here we will have a guest today to talk about yet another Spoofhound sport, Spoofhound football. They were actually able to have another big win this weekend against or rather on Friday against St. Pius. They went 56-0. So talking about our football teams, another shutout that we had this week for our football teams that we cover.
Yeah, when the Bearcats and the Spoofhounds can combine to win 119-0, you know it was a fun week to go out and watch some football. So 56-0. That defense, ever since week 1, and I think that was a little bit of a wake-up call for them against Blair Oaks, who you don't want to take anything away from Blair Oaks because they are just an incredible team. But with the last 3 weeks, I think the defense has shown what they really are, and they are a dominant unit that really flies around. And frankly, this game was all about the hard hits too. They were bringing the lumber against them. So just a dominant performance again by the Spoofhounds.
Today, as promised, we've got another special guest with us today, Coach Matt Webb of the Spoofhounds after another dominant victory for them, 56-0 over St. Pius on Friday. I'm going to kick it off over to John and let him kind of kick this interview off.
Yeah, Coach, just your 3rd straight shutout defensively. After week 1, just how happy are you with the way that side of the ball has really responded to the challenge and really, like you said a couple times, taken the coaching and made those adjustments?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they've done. You know, we obviously when you enter a season, you know, you go through your base schemes and you know the guys over the summer, you know, kind of learn their techniques and how we check different coverages and techniques up front and blitzes and pressures and just the entire defensive package. So you do that going into week 1, and then, you know, against Blair Oaks, they really hit us. New coaching staff and everything is hard to adjust to early in that football game. And, you know, they ran a few different schemes in that first quarter where we got down 0-19. And those are hard to adjust to. And so, you know, we made some stops there and got us into a situation to where we went up 21-19 against Blair Oaks and felt like, you know, we kind of were able to have control of that game and just didn't do it as a team. So I say all that to say I think what they did was they really committed to playing better defense and really realizing what our identity is on that side of the ball. And the kids really took a lot of, you know, pride and credit into fixing, you know, what happened against Blair Oaks in week 1. And these last 3 weeks they've prepared very well. They've listened to, you know, game plans and you know, you've got film, and throughout the week, you know, you practice on what an offense is going to do, and whether from a formational standpoint or a personnel standpoint, and then how do we dictate what we want to do against an offense and stay aggressive on that side of the football. And that's what we want to do, is get people in long yard situations, get takeaways, and use our athleticism when we need to bring pressure and some things like that. But they're just really committed to doing things the right way now. And, you know, defensive football, you know, for years comes down to fundamentals. You know, you run the football with a really ill frame of mind, and we call it swarm, which means you want to get there as fast as possible, whoever has the ball, whether it's your responsibility or not. in tackling, using good individual tackling technique, safe tackling technique in today's day and age with football. That's a huge important point that we talk about, and with not using your helmet as a weapon, but keeping your, it's a protective gear. And so practicing safe tackling technique individually, but also, team tackling, which means getting, the triangle around a ball carrier and not letting them, if one person misses a tackle, then there's two other people there ready to make that tackle. So they're just doing a great job of listening to fundamentals, and we've been fortunate. Shutouts are hard to come by. I talk about it every week. It's not that's not really a goal. You don't go in and say, hey, we're going to shut these people out. That's not what we say, because they're hard to come by. There's a trick play here, there's somebody falls down, or they're just, shutouts are kind of a result of executing a scheme very well.
And one unit I thought really executed was the defensive line. They have Ben Wade for St. Pius came in, very talented running back, had put up some great numbers this year, and I thought that unit of the ball really controlled the line of scrimmage. And you're replacing some great Spoofhounds on that side with guys like Jalen Sandell, Jacob Search, Jackson Sanders, some great defensive linemen from last year. Just how happy have you been with kind of the growth in that unit, and especially how they performed against a guy like Wade this week?
Yeah, I think that it all starts up front. We've said that on both sides of the ball, and really any level of football that you talk about. The games are usually won or lost on the offensive defensive line, and those guys, like you said, had played some valuable minutes in the last couple of years, but they've really grown up, and now it's kind of their time to put their mark on that. Some of those guys that have come before them that have been successful players for us, and they're doing a really good job. I think what's improving again with them each week is they're listening to Coach Gustafson. John Gustafson is our new defensive line coach, and we kind of had some rearrangement there on that side of the ball, and they're doing a good job of using their hands the last couple of weeks. Early on, I don't think they were doing that quite as much, and so they're just, again, that's a group or a position that is learn to play with better technique each week, and I think it's showing. Last week the number one goal is to stop their running game and make them throw it, and that again, like you mentioned, St. Pius in the last couple of weeks have done a really good job of running the football, and they graduated their quarterback from last year, so number 31, the tailback you mentioned, he was more their kind of focal point, and going into the game, I think he was averaging over 100 yards a game, and so our commitment last week was to eliminate that, and I think at the end of the night they had the total of under 10 yards rushing, I think, on the night. So it starts up front with those guys. They're doing a great job, but we talk about run defense with the linebackers fitting and the safeties fitting and the corners having horizontal leverage on things, and it's a group effort, but it definitely starts with those guys. And
then we get to the offensive side of the ball. You say the number one goal of the defense is to stop the run. The number one goal of the offense is definitely to establish that run. And you did that with multiple backs. Going into the season, we obviously talk a lot about Eli Dallas and Tyler Houchin coming off all-state campaigns, but you really, and part of that was because of the score of the game, but you were able to spread it around a lot. Nobody had over 8 carries, and everybody who got the ball is effective. Just how happy have you been with the other playmakers kind of stepping up around Tyler and Eli, who are obviously that starting running back duo? Yeah, those two guys are extremely talented. They know the offense inside and out. They've run it since they were in 5th and 6th grade around here. They've done it a long time. Obviously they're our starters and are extremely talented. The thing that Coach Houchin and our offensive staff I think goes unnoticed and don't do a good job, get enough credit for, is it's very difficult when you're playing defense against running backs, regardless of who they are, if they're fresh. And on defense, you're not fresh. So we've done a good job in the past, and our staff does a great job of rotating in some backs that are constantly fresh legs, is what we call it. And whether that's 2 or 3 different fullbacks in years past with Jacob Reuter, Tyler Houchin, so the combination of backs in positions really puts a stress and a bind on the defense, because they're constantly finishing the runs, falling forward. They're not getting, they have great ball security, things like that. That usually happens when you get tired. So when we play a team that maybe has a featured back, that that person may get 25, 30 carries a game, we tell the guys, hey, let's just keep, chopping wood, sawing logs, and eventually, we'll wear them down. Well, on the flip side, on the offensive side, when
in our wing T style of offense, when we're able to rotate guys through, whether it be, Trey Houchin, filling in for older brother Tyler, or Corbin Cook or Connor Weiss, or some of these guys that are getting those other carries, it keeps the defense off balance because we're fresh and they're not. But yeah, we've got a stable of backs, and in our wing T, it allows us to use them in different formations and different plays, and our offensive staff, Coach Houchin, Lessman, and Marcus Krasinski, and Travis Verdi, all those guys do a great job doing that.
And I featured your Top Gun quote in my story this week, but because I can't avoid not doing that, of course. But I thought maybe an even more interesting quote from you after that game was talking about the guys on the sideline after that game got a little out of hand, and where you were able to pull your starters, and having a bunch of upperclassmen willing to stay engaged in the game and help those younger guys figure out what they need to do to continue the success. Just how happy have you been with the leadership on this team, kind of embracing that role? It obviously starts with the captains, Trevor Townsend, and then Eli and Tyler, like we talked about, but all those upperclassmen being willing to help out the younger guys and keep that tradition kind of rolling.
Well, I appreciate you noticing that, because that's something that, again, goes unnoticed, that I'm happy as head coach to see, and something we talk about a lot. And, as lower level games are played on Monday nights and with our JV and our freshmen, a lot of times those games right now we're having a hard time finding games like that, because other schools are kind of not having enough roster size to fill those, and we're traveling different places outside of our MEC schools and things like that. So we like to get those younger players minutes when a game is in a running clock like it was the other night. And I really firmly believe that it's twofold for that. Number one, it's a long season. So, back to where you talked about keeping our running backs fresh, we fully intend to play all 15 football games this year, and we're going to need to be fresh, for all 15 football games. So you keep those guys healthy, and at the same time, you're developing your younger players in valuable varsity minutes on Friday nights. You can't replace that environment, the experience of getting out there and playing, and these guys have done that, in years past. The guys that are juniors and seniors, they've been able to do that. So now that they have the role of starters and kind of some ones on both sides of the ball, it's they've taken ownership and responsibility of those younger players to help coach them up, because that old slogan we say, tradition never graduates. Well, I think you see that in other programs maybe where they have a large class of seniors that get all those minutes on Friday night. The scores may be 60, 70, something to nothing or minimal, but those starters are getting every minute. And to me, our program success is about developing our younger players as well. So that's one of the things we talk about in maintaining tradition, and watching those guys coach the younger guys is just as important.
For those of you doing the math at home, that 15th game would be the Show Me Bowl in the state championship game. But I know you also preach the one game at a time. So this week's opponent is Cameron. You go on the road again to face a much improved Cameron team. Just what have you seen from Cameron this year? Well,
I think their first two games of the year they changed their schedule as well. They played Kansas City East and I believe Kansas City Northeast, and they were able to get some confidence. That program's, Coach John's been building that, and they just haven't been able to get a lot of confidence. So they got 2 wins right out of the box, and we're playing much more confident, and so you watch them. They've changed offensive schemes. They're playing much harder on defense. They're bigger up front. They've just have kind of got a group of players now that have been with them for a couple of years, and so they're kind of buying in because they got that confidence. And then they started MEC play with St. Pius 2 weeks ago and played a close game. It could have gone either way. They're toward in the second half. So again, a lot of confidence, because in years past they, when they play an MEC school, they haven't had that. And then last week, Chillicothe, that's a rival game for them. So, obviously that's, they took a loss there, but just I see a lot of more confidence in how they're playing. They're playing a lot harder. They're bought into what their offensive and defensive schemes are kind of designed around. Offensively, they do a lot of run-pass option, RPO plays where they've got a quarterback that's a big kid that he can run it and throw it. So they've got some talent, and the kids are really buying into their program now.
Is that maybe not so much as an opposing coach because you're focused on beating them, but as kind of a fan of football, just is that nice to see for those kids to get those couple wins? And they've been on some tough times recently, and just for those kids that have stuck it out and built towards this to start the year 2-0 like they did.
Yeah, absolutely. And as an opposing coach playing them, I'm constantly, preaching to our guys and talking about our progression through the season is to find ways to get better. And it really doesn't matter, like I mentioned about the shutouts, the scoreboard sometimes is what everybody sees and what everybody, how that dictates success. And for us as a program and as a win-the-day philosophy and things like that, we talk about building each week. That's really not what we're focused on. So Cameron provides us an opportunity to make us focus and go in with an intention to get better at the fundamentals and get better ourselves. And the scoreboard will take care of itself, but we need to find ways to improve each and every week.
Gotcha.
And when you kind of talk about this program that you guys have built and the mentality, I grew up in Southwest Iowa, but the Hounds are a team that's well known if you're anywhere close. How do you kind of build this mentality into these guys? And when you got guys like Eli Dallas and Tyler Houchin, Dallas, and they're just under 100 yards every game because you don't necessarily need to run them the whole game. How do you build that mentality from the top to the bottom of your roster with these older guys and these younger guys?
Well, I think, number one, we've got a very unselfish mentality. It's all about the team first, and that's difficult sometimes for high school athletes and players to understand is, it's not about us having one 2,500-yard rusher or one 2,000-yard rusher. It's about team success. And our style of offense, wing T, there are plays that are set for positions, and when a defense tries to take one thing away, it opens up another side of our offense. And those guys are very unselfish, and we look at the end of the night, and last week we rushed for over 300 yards as a team, and literally everybody's looking at each other and giving high fives and telling the offensive line good job, because they really don't look and see, well, I only had 60, or I only had this, I could have had 200 myself or something. So the unselfish identity is something that we really have established and talk about a lot, and these guys own it and understand that's the way it's going to be, and they're very proud of that.
You've also added to the passing game this year. Even though Tate didn't start last year, we knew Tate Oglesby was going to be a good receiver for you, but Ben Walker's emergence and he's really taking care of the ball really well too, is something I've noticed, but which maybe gives him a little bit more rope to throw the ball a little more, I'm sure. But what have you seen from Ben, obviously taking over for Will Walker last year at quarterback, who was able to navigate you to the state title, obviously. But what have you seen from Ben this year and his progression as just a sophomore?
Yeah, I think, number one, we talk about, a team philosophy and a team atmosphere, especially with our wing T, is that the quarterback position is not any, it's one out of 11. We talk about doing your 1/11th every week and doing your responsibility. So regardless of who is taking snaps at quarterback, he has to do his job just like the offensive tackle or the wide receiver or running back, whoever it is. And so that doesn't change. But year to year and week to week, you look and you see where are some possibilities that we can, get some people out of the running box and loosen them up. And we're extremely talented receiver, like you mentioned with Tate and Caleb Kreisinger is a sophomore, and Deion Metazier, moving in, and some things like that we've got some really talented receivers. So when we have those options, we want to utilize it. And the quarterback position, it's any level you look at, it kind of starts and goes through him as well, because he takes a snap every time and has to operate an offense. So when Ben is very talented, he's very skilled, and it's using his I guess I should say youthfulness to an advantage, and realizing that he can make some throws that really highlight some of those receivers, and keeping it within our style of offense and running our wing T, but also having the ability to spread it out and kind of get some people out of the box. What happens is it opens up some run lanes for, again, talented Tyler Houchin, Eli Dallas, Connor Weiss, Caleb Cook, those guys that can really hit the seams inside, because people are now worried about your receivers. So we've been able to be a little more multiple with Ben at quarterback, and he's got some good legs. He can run. He had a great run the other night, a couple of good runs the other night, and it all starts with him. His job, he knows, is to take care of the football and not hurt a defense, not put us in bad situations when our defense comes on the field. But he's listening and getting better every week, and I'm really proud of his progression.
I know you had a busy weekend of football too. You were able to make out to the Bearcat game yesterday, and they put up a similar score to what you guys did, as we mentioned, with 63-0 win. But you were also able to see, like the rest of the fans were, Scott Boswick and Mel Churchma get honored. And as somebody who's been in this community longer than I have, certainly, what do those two guys mean to you, and kind of setting that culture for football here in Maryville?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate you asking. Yeah, I'm a Bearcat fan. I live here. I was born and raised here, and then moved away and came back. And I love sitting in the stands. It's also fun as a former coach, watching a lot of Spoofhounds out on the field that are Bearcats now, and watching them progress through their careers. So it's fun to watch those transitions. But I think number one, Coach T, obviously, back in the early '90s, really kind of changed the culture and the community with keeping success, having a successful football program that's built around pride, character, and having good people on and off the field, whether that's in your coaching staff or the players you recruit. They really can be a bright light to a community, and I think Maryville kind of basically just embraced that, and then the success on the field started coming, and from a high school, that's a mile down the road on Munn, we have certainly benefited from that, but from just watching and being in a community that has had that success. So all the kids that we have grow up through Eugene Field and Washington Middle, or Eugene Field, what was Washington Middle and now are Maryville Middle School, they all know that the Bearcats are going to be successful. So if they're going to be successful, why can't we as a high school football program? And so that basic question is answered with, how do they do it? Well, they work hard in the weight room. They've got a great strength and conditioning program. It's a year-round commitment to doing things right on and off the field, the character, the stuff. All those things kind of go hand in hand. And Scott Bostic was certainly part of that. And my friendship with Adam Dorrell through the years, we grew up together as kids, and probably I could tell a lot of stories that probably don't need to be mentioned on a podcast. But there's some mutual friendships that through the years I'd remained friends with. Rich Wright, Joel Osborne, Charlie Floor, you name it. Scott Bostwick, and I just remember Scott Bostwick getting an opportunity to be a head football coach years ago when Coach T retired, and the conversation I had with him at a coaching convention was, in his raspy voice, he kind of grabbed my ears and I said, "Webby, hey, listen, this is going to be awesome. I can't, and at the time I was a coordinator in at Southeastern Louisiana University, and knew that one day I wanted to be a head coach and have an opportunity to lead a program, and never really thought it'd be at the high school level, but God has different plans and things like that. But Scott kind of grabbed my ears and said, "Hey, Webby, listen, this is going to be the best experience. I'm so happy. I'm so excited about what's coming in the future." And this was kind of the summer before he passed away. And I just remember him saying that, and then realizing in my own life, hey, here's a guy that's got an opportunity that he's so excited about, and leading a program. And then, he passed away in the summer and never got a chance to coach on the field. And so every time I see those red hats, that means something special to me, because I know Coach Wright's heart and obviously the administration, and with Coach T now on to other things that I know where their heart is, and honoring a man like that through Family Day is something I'm always happy to take part of too, because he played a huge role in so many people's lives and coaching on and off the field.
Thank you, really, just kind of for sharing that with us. It's always, Family Weekend is kind of the story that if you're new here, like myself not growing up here, it's incredible to hear guys like those legends who have built these programs and built this town. Like you said, not just great athletes, but people the community can really get behind as good people.
Well, I think that's obviously, as the high school coach here in town, that's one of the things I always appreciate with the way Coach Wright and this program brings in guys that I can tell our guys, hey, look, here's some guys that do things right on the field. Obviously, look at them. They're playing great defense. They're taking care of the football. They're physical, just the schematic stuff. And it's good to have that, just like I said, a mile down the road. But off the field, it's very nice to also tell those guys, hey, look, these guys also appreciate the role of Family Weekend and the role of our community, and represent our university, our local university, in the right way. And we should be able to do that as a high school program as well.
Well, thank you again for coming in and talking to us, Matt. We really enjoy breaking down Spoofhound football every week, and we look forward to covering the rest of your season.
Thanks a lot. This is great. I appreciate you all having me on.
That'll be it for us today on the Maryville Forum Sports Podcast. As always, I'm Aaron Sorensen with my co-host John Dykstra. We are brought to you by Compass Dental, Doctors Bruce Twaddle and Brian Vertaler. And for all these games that we talked about coming up, you can find them on the Maryville Forum website, and you can catch up with all the stories that John will be covering all these area sports. So we look forward to bringing you more sports news next week.
Bringing you all the latest Nottoway County high school and Bearcat sports each week.
10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45.
Starring Aaron Sorensen and John Dykstra on the Maryville Forum Sports Podcast.
He ran it back 109 yards. They're not going to keep him off the field.
Coming to you from the campus of Northwest Missouri State University.